Welcome everybody, Shiur number 647. We're learning today Refuah Shlema. Rabbi Yitzchak ben Alta Chaya Sarah Yehudis Shetaka have a Refuah Shlema B'soich Shar Chayli Yisrael. Getting back to our malacha of TOFAIR sewing. So we're in the middle of going through some various different, there's quite a number of examples whereby we have issues of TOFAIR, sewing and koshair, tearing, and one is not actually using a thread and needle, and one is not tearing up the paper. As we've been talking about till now, that sticking two pieces of paper together is running into a problem of TOFAIR, and taking it apart is running into a problem of koshair, depending on how long, and so on. Okay, so the last year we spoke about various different things: adhesive notes, post-it notes, scotch tape, those type of inyanim. I just want to go through a couple of things which one has to be aware of. They might not even be aware that come up that are a real major problem of TOFAIR sewing or possibly koshair. Tearing. Now, again, we're trying with the koshair. We're going to try and do a little separately, but again, TOFAIR and koshair, they are mamish like a brother and sister. They get intertwined, and kosher and mater, sewing, tying and untying, like we're doing on the alternate day, is also a brother and sister. So we'll be discussing them together, but we're trying at the same time trying to keep them somewhat separate. Okay, so the Sefer Lamed Tes Malachos brings down an interesting point on page 819 that sometimes one is learning, or lahavdil reading a book, or whatever the case might be, and what happens is the binding tape. Many of these books, lahavdil sfarim, have binding tape on the side, and over time they starts to curl up. It starts to get detached. So what one does while they're learning on Shabbos, a person gets into the learning and they're not paying attention, and they just start to press down on the back of the sefer, or the side of the sefer, and they start pressing down the corners with the tape that was starting to come up. And now the tape, basically, the binding tape now gets stuck back on, and pretty much, as we understand, is going to stay like that. So brings on the Sefer Lamed Tes Malachos that in actually Ois number 22 that we saw b'shem the Rambam, Shulchan Aruch, and so on, that Hamadamik Niyaris Ayris Bekulan Shel Soifrim Achayes Be'areza told us TOFAIR v'chayv. In other words, this is a real case of that which the Rambam brought down, the Shulchan Aruch brought it down, Halacha L'maisa, of real TOFAIR. That L'maisa, this is the Soifrim, this is the Sefer, and this is the binding glue that's used, and this is mamish the case that's brought down in the Shulchan Aruch. With the koilin, shel soifrim, okay, it's a different day and age, so maybe a different quality, or whatever the case is. But mamish, this is the case. So one has to be extremely careful not to press it down, and it could possibly be a l'chayru, would be a deraisa. So brings down the Sefer Lamed Tes Malachos, just to read in the English section. He brings like this: that pressing down binding tape that has begun to curl at the corners on an old sefer or a book or whatever is a good example of this Rambam, which we saw and brought down the Shulchan Aruch. One must be taka careful not to press and stick the adhesive tape back into its place on the cover or the pages of the sefer, because doing so would be the malacha minatayra, malacha diaraisa of TOFAIR. You have it also on the pages. Sometimes the binding tape is inside. Sometimes it's takas old scotch tape. Somebody's learning from a sefer. There's a page that's scotch taped together. The tape starts to come up. You give it a push down. You just push it with your fingers a little, and it'll stay like that for the next 2 weeks. So mamish, this is a minatayra. This is the real deal, as they say, of TOFAIR, of Hamadamik the Yaris, and it's going to stay over here. We can't use the heter of possibly kiyum, where it's less than 7 days, less than 24 hours. It's going to stay a long time, and that's it. So we all have to be careful in such an instance, whether it's learning from a sefer, reading a book, lahavdil, whatever the case is, to be careful. Binding tape, scotch tape, old binding tape on the outside, inside, on the page, wherever it is. If it's coming loose, being careful not to press on it on Shabbos. And the biggest problem with this is, which I think is, this is something that, like he brings down, doesn't say for Lamed Tes Malachos, this is done unwittingly. In other words, a person doesn't think, they're learning, they get oisik into their learning, and then they start to push down. Nobody's doing this on purpose, nobody's taking scotch tape and putting it down. They just, as they're learning, they start to move their hands up and down. So one has to be very careful in those situations. Another interesting case that comes up, excuse me, we have, people have pictures, they have photos, and people have an album that they want to put the photos into, their family album, whatever it is, the children. And sometimes Shabbos people, they're looking at the pictures, whatever the case is, they have a little more time. So they'll take the album, they'll take off the adhesive paper that's attached to the page, And these pages, these adhesive plastics that are on top of the page of the album, these hard albums, most a good chunk of the time, they brings on the Sefer Lamed Malachas. They have gummed pages to make it stick better, and it's designed mamish to that it should stick for a very long period of time. So what does one do? They take the picture, they stick it in the album, and then they press down on the plastic, which is on top of the hard page in the album. Like this, the pictures will stay. One has to know that is a major problem of TOFAIR, and it's not allowed to be done on Shabbos. Obviously, this is something that's going to last for more than 24 hours. It's going to last for more than a week, more than 7 days. No shaila about it, and it's being done with that machshava to last for a long period of time. And mamish, it's you're sticking two pieces of paper pretty much together. So he brings it down to the Sefer Lamed Malachas from the Shiur Shabbos HILCHOS, just to read it real quickly inside. Photo albums of the type made with gummed pages, designed to allow one to press and affix regular pictures to each page, may not be, and these albums are made with the gum pages, obviously, because otherwise the pictures won't stay. But lemaisa, one is not allowed to do it. They press it down, they affix the photos to each page. That is not allowed to be done for this purpose of on Shabbos or on Yom Tov. Sticking the photos to the pages of the album is the malacha of TOFAIR. So it's whether you have the picture itself you're sticking onto the gum page, or the plastic, which is also a sticky type of material on top. Either way, one has to be extremely careful not to do that on Shabbos and Yom Tov. The outside plastic might not be as adhesive, but it's also made in a way whereby you press it down, it stays like that, and it's good to go. The picture gets stuck onto the page. So these are all things that are being stuck onto paper, hamadabik niyaris, and they're being done for a long periods of time, and that is the malacha, the isser of TOFAIR. One has to be extremely careful not to do that on Shabbos. Just real quickly to read from the Sefer Shabbos Home, brings down also on page 78, same thing, pictures may not be inserted into a photo album that has adhesive pages. This is also to do on Shabbos, als TOFAIR sewing. Another thing he brings under the Sefer Shabbos Home, which is a Dava Pashit, but just to mention it on the same page 78, that Lemaisa, just like we said, the binding of the book, he brings down, it's also forbidden, it's also usher to tape book covers. Many times people have these book covers that you stick it on the book or on a sefer to protect the sefer and so on. So this, of course, will be usher to do on Shabbos. It is forbidden, it's taka usher to tape book covers or to reattach tape that came loose from the binding of a book or from a sefer and so on. On Shabbos, these are all in yonim of TOFAIR min haTorah. They're being stayed for a long time. Now, the other thing is that sometimes we don't have it today so much, but years ago they had these old, like handmade paper covers that are not stuck on at all. It's just there to protect. It's like slips onto the outside of the sefer. So that l'chayra could be, one could put it back. There's nothing stuck on. It's just, it slips in, the cover slips into the, the cover of the sefer slips into that paper cover, and there's nothing being stuck. So that could be, it comes off. L'chayra, just to put that back, that's no problem. But anytime it's a book cover that's being stuck on, and any way at all, and it's there to stay, that is Asr Alts TOFAIR. Thank you for listening. Atzlach and Baracha Kol Tov.